Hey Robert, you buy a micro unit. I didn't even know there was such a thing, but you bought a micro unit and you can no longer make money from this micro unit. What do you do?
Well, you got caught in the middle of the stream and they changed horses on you. And so what do you do? Depends on where you are in the process. We saw it mentioned here this Victoria suburb condo, very small units that would be very suitable for short-term rentals. There's a variety of services that have popped up and allow people to rent their basement, rent their whole house, swap their house with somebody else. And it sort of serves a purpose unless someone does it as a commercial operation.
There you
If they
go.
want to run a commercial operation in a residential zone, well, that's not permitted anywhere. You can't run a plumber shop in your garage. You can't do a number of things that are deemed to be commercial because that upsets the ebb and flow of the neighborhood that's set up to be residential. Now, condos is the most prevalent one because it was a very easy way for an investor client to buy a unit of whatever size, be it 240 square feet, 500 square feet, 1,100 square feet, and rent it out on a per night basis at a very big premium times 30 to what he could on a monthly basis. No, if it's in a condominium, that's another layer of government that you're in. It's not only residential, it's a condominium corporation where the enjoyment of every other person that has just as much of a share ownership in that hallway and in that elevator and in that building environment as you do is now being upset by your people who are coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning, hooting and hollering, having a great time because they think they're in Las Vegas. But no, you're next door to their home and they're blasting the music. They're doing like it's just that's why it's prohibited in the bylaw. Or they sometimes had to rush bylaws into being because they said, "Oh, we never anticipated this." Now someone is disrupting. Like just because it's a disruption doesn't mean it's a good thing. And in commercial and in all kinds of things, people think disruption is good. No, it just means you decided that you're going to tickle something in a way it was never intended to be tickled. Sometimes that breaks the metal. Other times, yes, it's a new way and a new way of business evolves, but not where you're breaking the zoning, not where you're doing something where you're not supposed to do it. So we have an article here from people who were buying a 240 square foot condominium micro unit. Now, a micro unit used to be 500 square feet. TD, like we have a deal with TD at Remax, and they wouldn't do less than 500 square feet. It was too small. And then it got to be 400, and then it got to be 300. Now somebody has come up with some kind of a thing where you're getting a hotel room sized 240 square foot where I don't know, the bathroom is in the kitchen. I don't know how they did it, but it was obviously intended to be not student housing because it's too small, but for instead of a hotel room. And to provide a source of income for the purchaser. Now, the purchaser's not going to live there. Nobody's going to live there. If they're all going to be like that, well, there's something like on Fort York in Toronto. There's a building on a street where that's okay there, and so that's what all of them are. Now, the economic life of that building will be diminished. Their maintenance and repair bill will go up because the people who are there are not taking care of it. They don't care about the garbage. They throw anything down. They don't care because they're only going to be there for one day rather than someone who's a real owner or a long-term tenant or the landlord for a long-term tenant wants to make sure that everything is there, costs are maintained, and maintenance is kept up because they want it to be a nice thing for a long time. So again, we go back to the same thing. If you're doing something commercial in a residential zone, there's going to be conflicts. And sometimes if you're on the wrong side of the law or they change the law to make you on the wrong side of the law, you're going to lose. So
Well,
these
that's
folks here who thought they were too smart by half, guess what?
that's the big part of this. I'm going to pull up Airbnb's own website, and this happened in Vancouver. These micro units that
Yep,
we presume are speculate. Well, speculators. You may want to call them investors because
they are
if
investors. They had a plan. This was
yeah,
supposed to work out, and they changed the rules on them. Now,
and that's
this
the
is
biggest
not
difference.
good either, but
The
that's what
biggest
happens.
Yeah, the biggest difference is as an investor, they thought that this could be a perpetually workable thing. Speculator would have bought it and flipped it and made money off of that. But here are the new short-term rental regulations. This was as of late last year, fall of last year.
Okay.
So the rules for vacation rentals in Vancouver, entire home or a room within that home, rented for fewer than 30 days at a time, only operated from your principal residence. So a micro unit is definitely not principal residence, let alone a 240 square foot one. The home where you live as an owner or tenant and used for bills, identification, taxes, and insurance. So if you own a principal plus this micro unit, you can obviously see why these micro units are no longer permitted. Secondary homes or basement suites if the operator lives there full time. So you live in a house, you have a legal basement apartment, you have a garden suite, let's say in Toronto. If that's permitted, then that's allowed. Short-term rental is not permitted. Accessory buildings like a garage or art studio, trailer or boat, or rental 100 buildings. Homes that pay the empty home tax. So in another episode, we're going to be talking about some of the Toronto implications for something like this. But Robert, I guess the Airbnb train has left. I mean, it's the opportunity there, unless you're genuinely renting out your principal residence, you have multiple rooms, it's just yourself or yourself and your partner. You're an empty nester, you've got 3 rooms, you've got a basement, you got a whole bunch of stuff. You live in Markham, you have this what do you call those coach houses? Those are probably okay in Toronto, but what do you do? Like let's say you were the one who bought this 240 square foot micro unit that wasn't intended for housing. It was intended for a transient place to live. You're stuck. What are the
Well, you try
options?
and get out of the deal. That's what you do first. And then you say, okay, just like the previous guy, am I better off bailing on this? Like at 240 square feet, it's the cheapest unit you can buy. And if it's in a suburb, that it's also going to be cheapest unit. Now, the developer's selling it for the most they imagine someone would pay. So you try and get out of the deal. You have your lawyer examine the deal and say something's wrong with it. Maybe they'll be late. Maybe you have to blow your deposit. Because if it's now a not permitted use, then nobody's going to want it. Maybe depending if they're all built or if they're still hole in the ground, or we don't know that. Maybe they'll make 2 units into one and rejig the whole thing. We don't know. But it's
Yeah.
the big shame here is that they changed the rules in the middle. But anybody who is in this short-term rental, there's many companies that are in this business, and the one big one, what do you call them, has tried their best through their registration system to make sure that they keep people from getting into trouble. But they are, after you already own it, they're trying to help you find someone to go in it. But short-term rental is the term, the generic term, and you must have smelled that there was something coming down in Toronto and other municipalities that they're frowning on it. They don't want you to do it. Now somebody's put up a building like it, and you think you're going to be exempt. How long are you going to be exempt? Just long enough to sign the paper, and now you get whacked. So if it's too good to be true, guess what? Probably is.
All right. So understand the risks if this is some kind of a venture that you're looking into, but also understand the rules because in as much as Airbnb opportunities have been taken away from certain situations, there are certain situations where you can still do it. Thanks for watching this episode of Real Estate Chat. Make sure you subscribe and like this episode if you found it informative. Share it with your Airbnb buddies.
Ha!
In the next episode, take care and bye for now. Let's go buy some micro units.
Micro brewery.